Hey everybody, this is Andrei with Founders Legal. I'm a corporate transactional attorney, and today we're going to be talking about mergers and acquisitions. Mergers and acquisitions is a very simple thing where effectively one company buys another. But of course it has a lot of different flavors. Well, for one, a company can sell all of its equity, its shares, to another company. But at the same time, it can also sell off its assets. And that process, the sale of that specific thing from one party to another, is exactly what M&A is. And a lot of people don't really kind of understand what's involved in that, because unless you live it, unless you're in it all the time, it's kind of a black box. The business people come together, they shake hands, and then what happens? It gets handed off to lawyers, they do some stuff, and hopefully the deal happens. Unfortunately, sometimes it doesn't, or things come along that cause it to go south. Today, we're gonna talk about some things that you or your management team can do to help maximize the likelihood of success for that transaction. In preparing a company and building a company to sell, the management team has to, of course, do all of the right things. And why is that important in the context of an M&A transaction? Well, we have to look at kind of the process as a whole, because once the company's ready to sell, it looks for a buyer. It prepares for the sale, and it looks to get that deal done. So once it actually finds a buyer who's interested, what happens then? Well, the parties look at each other very broadly. The buyer assigns a value to what they see, and they generally sign a letter of intent. And the letter of intent says, we intend to do this deal. Here are the general bullet point terms. Let's see if we can make this happen. Let's see if this makes sense. Because what happens after that is what's called the due diligence period, meaning that's when the buyer actually gets to look under the hood and see what engine's in there. And that's where a lot of the problems usually come up. Because if there are skeletons buried in the closet, they're gonna come out during this process. And it's so important to ensure that those skeletons are not there when people open the door. Anything from corporate governance and structure to a labor and employment law for a lot of companies dealing with people who have a large headcount, to intellectual property for companies that rely on that for their value, to, for example, real estate issues and land and title. It's important that every single one of those are properly accounted for in advance of due diligence. So what can a company do to help ensure, or at least increase, the likelihood that when it chooses to sell? Well, the first point is start early. Ensure that every single facet of the business, the operations, the real estate, the intellectual property, the people, that every single one of those aspects is as buttoned up as it could possibly be. And sometimes that can take years to do. Bring in the right advisors and the right team to help do that. If the management team can't do it themselves, find consultants who can. The other aspect, of course, is get organized. Bring your team in early to the transaction so that they're ahead of it. And finally, make sure that you find the right buyer. Ideally, they strike an initial deal and they go into a letter of intent where they agree to actually do the deal. Then the process goes into due diligence. And ideally, if everything has been done up front, the due diligence process should be fairly seamless. There might be some post-closing obligations, but those are generally part of the deal and they're discussed. It could be that the management team stays on to run the company that's just been sold. Could be insurance policies, could be a number of things that the parties agree to in advance to happen after. So I hope this gives you a brief overview of what an M&A transaction looks like and what could be done for your company if you're looking to sell it to ensure that it achieves the highest likelihood of success for the deal to close.